What if I told you that some of humanity's greatest technological achievements weren't lost by accident, but were deliberately erased from history? Welcome to No Sleep Historian, where we dig into the dark corners of the past to uncover the technologies, inventions, and knowledge that vanished without a trace. I'm your host, and tonight we're going somewhere most historians fear to tread. This isn't your typical history channel. We don't just tell you what happened. We ask the uncomfortable questions. Why did it disappear? Who wanted it gone? And what would our world look like if these lost technologies had survived? From Roman concrete that grows stronger with age to Damascus steel that could cut through anything, from ancient computers to flexible glass that emperors killed to suppress, the past is full of mysteries that make our modern world look primitive by comparison. So grab your headphones, turn down the lights, and prepare to question everything you thought you knew about human progress. Because sometimes the most important stories are the ones that were meant to stay buried. Vanished Technologies. Part 1. The concrete that defied time. Roman concrete. In the heart of Rome, the Pantheon stands as a testament to engineering prowess that modern builders struggle to match. Its massive concrete dome, completed nearly 2,000 years ago, remains the world's largest unreinforced concrete structure. Yet, walk through any modern city and you'll see concrete buildings crumbling after mere decades, their surfaces stained and cracked, their structural integrity compromised by time and weather. This paradox raises a fundamental question. How did ancient Romans create concrete that not only survived millennia, but actually grew stronger with age? The answer lies in a volcanic secret that the Romans stumbled upon through necessity and perfected through generations of trial and error. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 CE, burying Pompeii and Herculaneum, it also provided the Romans with their most valuable building material, volcanic ash, or, as they called it, pozzolan. This ash, when mixed with lime and water, created something extraordinary. Modern concrete relies on Portland cement, a relatively recent invention dating to the 1820s. This cement forms a paste that binds aggregate materials together, but it's fundamentally different from Roman concrete in both composition and behavior. Portland cement creates a strong initial bond, but over time, exposure to water and salt leads to deterioration. The concrete becomes porous, allowing water to seep in and corrode the steel reinforcement bars within, leading to structural failure. Roman concrete, however, tells a different story. The Romans combined volcanic ash with lime mortar and chunks of volcanic rock called tuff. This mixture created a chemical reaction that modern scientists are only beginning to fully understand. The volcanic ash contained silica and alumina, which reacted with the lime to form calcium silicate hydrate, the binding agent that holds the concrete together. But here's where it gets fascinating. This reaction doesn't stop after the initial setting. It continues for centuries. Dr. Marie Jackson, a geologist at the University of Utah, has spent years studying Roman concrete samples from ancient harbors. Her research revealed that Roman concrete actually becomes denser and stronger over time through a process called self-healing. When seawater infiltrates the concrete, it doesn't cause corrosion as it would in modern structures. Instead, it triggers continued chemical reactions that fill in cracks and pores, creating an even stronger material. The Romans didn't understand the chemistry behind their concrete, but they understood its properties through observation and experimentation. They discovered the ash from Pessuwali near Naples, was particularly prized for underwater construction. Roman engineers developed sophisticated techniques for mixing and applying their concrete, often incorporating additives like horsehair for tensile strength and blood for frost resistance. The construction of Roman harbors demonstrates the remarkable durability of their concrete. The harbor at Caesarea, built by Herod the Great around 22 BCE, used massive concrete blocks poured directly into the sea. These blocks, some weighing over 50 tons, were lowered into position using ingenious wooden forms. Nearly 2,000 years later, these structures remain largely intact, despite constant exposure to saltwater, storms, and seismic activity. The Romans' mastery of concrete allowed them to build on an unprecedented scale. The Pantheon's dome, measuring 142 feet in diameter, was poured in a single continuous operation. The concrete was mixed with progressively lighter aggregates as construction moved upward, from heavy travertine at the base to lightweight pumice at the top. This technique reduced the overall weight while maintaining structural integrity. Other Roman concrete marvels include the baths of Caracalla, with their soaring vaulted ceilings, and the Basilica of Maxentus, whose concrete arches spanned vast interior spaces without intermediate supports. These structures pushed the boundaries of what was possible with concrete construction, achieving feats that wouldn't be attempted again until the modern era. So what happened to this remarkable technology? The fall of the Roman Empire marked the beginning of the Dark Ages, a period when much classical knowledge was lost or abandoned. The complex infrastructure needed to produce high-quality volcanic ash concrete became disrupted. Trade routes that brought pozzolana to construction sites across the empire were severed. The specialized knowledge of Roman engineers was scattered as the empire fragmented. Medieval builders, lacking access to volcanic ash and the accumulated wisdom of Roman engineers, turned to other materials. Stone masonry became the dominant construction technique, producing magnificent cathedrals and castles, but abandoning the versatility and economy of concrete. The few attempts to recreate Roman concrete during the medieval period met with limited success, as builders lacked both the proper materials and the understanding of the underlying chemistry. The Renaissance brought renewed interest in classical Roman architecture, but attempts to recreate Roman concrete were hampered by incomplete understanding of the original techniques. It wasn't until the 18th and 19th centuries that systematic efforts to develop new concrete formulations began, leading eventually to Portland cement. Ironically, the Industrial Revolution's emphasis on standardization and mass production led to concrete formulations that prioritized rapid setting and consistent performance over long-term durability. Portland cement could be produced anywhere, using readily available limestone and clay, making it ideal for the rapid construction demands of the modern world. But this convenience came at the cost of longevity. Today, as we face the enormous challenge of maintaining aging concrete infrastructure, researchers are looking back to Roman techniques with new appreciation. The self-healing properties of Roman concrete could revolutionize modern construction, potentially creating buildings and bridges that repair themselves and last for centuries rather than decades. Scientists are now working to recreate Roman concrete using modern techniques. Some researchers are experimenting with volcanic ash from contemporary sources, while others are trying to synthesize similar materials artificially. The goal is to combine the durability of Roman concrete with the performance requirements of modern construction, The story of Roman concrete serves as a powerful reminder that technological progress isn't always linear. Sometimes the ancients possessed knowledge that we've lost, and sometimes the path forward requires looking backward. As we grapple with the environmental costs of constantly replacing deteriorating infrastructure, the Romans' volcanic secret offers hope for a more sustainable future built on foundations that truly stand the test of time. Part 2. The Machine from the Bottom of the Sea. Topic: the Antikythera mechanism. In the autumn of 1900, a group of sponge divers from the Greek island of Symi sought shelter from a fierce storm near the rocky coast of Antikythera. When the weather cleared, they decided to dive for sponges in the unfamiliar waters. What they discovered would challenge our understanding of ancient technology and reveal that the classical world possessed mechanical sophistication that wouldn't be seen again for over 1,000 years. Captain Demetrios Kondos and his crew found themselves above a Roman shipwreck, its hull split open and scattered across the seafloor. Among the marble statues, pottery, and coins lay corroded bronze fragments that would initially be dismissed as unimportant debris. These fragments, later cleaned and studied, revealed the most complex mechanical device to survive from antiquity: the Antikythera mechanism. The mechanism, dating to approximately 100 BCE, defies every assumption about ancient Greek technological capability. At first glance, the corroded bronze fragments seemed insignificant compared to the beautiful statues and valuable coins recovered from the wreck. Greek archaeologists initially catalogued the bronze pieces as miscellaneous items, noting strange gear-like shapes but not recognizing their significance. It was Derek J. de Sala Price, a British science historian, who first recognized the mechanism's true nature in the 1950s. Price spent decades studying the device, employing increasingly sophisticated techniques to peer inside the corroded bronze. His work revealed a complex system of at least 37 bronze gears, precisely machined and arranged in an intricate clockwork mechanism that could predict the positions of the sun, moon, and planets with remarkable accuracy. The mechanism's complexity is staggering. Its gear ratios correspond exactly to the astronomical knowledge of its time. Incorporating the 19-year Metonic cycle that reconciles lunar and solar calendars, the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games, and the complex elliptical orbit of the Moon, the device could predict eclipses decades in advance and track the wandering paths of the 5 planets known to ancient astronomers. Modern CT scans and 3D modeling have revealed the mechanism's internal structure in unprecedented detail. The device contained multiple dials and pointers operated by a hand crank that drove the entire system. The front dial showed the positions of the sun and moon against the zodiac, while the back featured 2 spiral dials, one predicting eclipses and another tracking the 4-year Olympiad cycle. The precision of the mechanism's construction rivals that of 18th century clockwork. The gears were cut with extraordinary accuracy, their teeth precisely shaped to mesh smoothly with adjacent gears. The bronze plates were inscribed with detailed instructions and astronomical data, creating what was essentially the world's first analog computer. Who built this remarkable device? The mechanism's design suggests a connection to the astronomical traditions of Rhodes, where the great astronomer Hipparchus worked in the 2nd century BCE. Hipparchus is credited with discovering the precession of the equinoxes and creating the first comprehensive star catalog. The mechanism's lunar calculations incorporate his discoveries about the moon's complex motion. The device may have been built by followers of Hipparchus, or possibly by the school of Posidonius, another great astronomer who worked on Rhodes. These scholars had access to centuries of Babylonian astronomical observations and the geometric insights of Greek mathematics. The mechanism represents the fusion of these traditions into a working mechanical model of the cosmos. The shipwreck itself provides clues about the mechanism's origin and purpose. The ship was traveling from the Greek islands toward Rome, carrying luxury goods for wealthy Roman collectors. The mechanism may have been intended as a gift for a Roman patron, or perhaps as a teaching tool for Roman students of astronomy. The loss of this technology represents one of history's great discontinuities. While the Romans were capable engineers and builders, they showed little interest in the complex astronomical calculations that fascinated Greek scholars. Roman practical concerns focused on military engineering, architecture, and administration rather than the abstract mathematical modeling that the mechanism represented. The mechanism's sophisticated gear trains wouldn't be seen again until the development of mechanical clocks in medieval Europe more than 1,000 years later. Even then, early mechanical clocks were far simpler than the Antikythera device, serving merely to mark the hours rather than tracking complex astronomical phenomena. Why did this technology disappear? Several factors contributed to its loss. The Roman conquest of Greece led to the decline of the great Greek schools of astronomy and mathematics. Roman cultural preferences favored practical engineering over abstract mathematical modeling. The expensive bronze required for gear construction became increasingly scarce as the empire faced economic pressures. The mechanism also represents a dead end in technological development. While ingenious, it was a bespoke device requiring extraordinary skill to construct and maintain. Unlike simpler technologies that could be easily copied and adapted, the mechanism's complexity made it nearly impossible to replicate. Without deep understanding of both astronomy and precision metalworking, medieval Islamic astronomers, who preserved much Greek astronomical knowledge, developed sophisticated mathematical techniques and astronomical instruments. However, they favored different approaches to astronomical calculation, using geometric instruments like astrolabes rather than mechanical computers. The tradition of gear-based astronomical calculation was lost. The rediscovery of the Antikythera mechanism in the 20th century forced historians to reconsider the technological capabilities of the ancient world. It demonstrated that Greek artisans possessed mechanical skills far beyond what anyone had imagined. The device bridges the gap between ancient astronomy and modern mechanical engineering, showing that the intellectual leap from abstract mathematical models to working mechanical computers occurred much earlier than previously thought. Modern attempts to recreate the mechanism have required the combined expertise of archaeologists, astronomers, mechanical engineers, and computer scientists. The Antikythera Mechanism Research Project, an international collaboration, has spent years deciphering the device's inscriptions and reconstructing its internal mechanisms. Their work has revealed additional complexity, including possible indicators for the synodic periods of the planets and connections to ancient eclipse prediction cycles. The mechanism challenges our linear view of technological progress. It demonstrates that innovation can emerge from the intersection of different fields of knowledge, and that sophisticated technologies can be lost as easily as they are discovered. The device serves as a reminder that human ingenuity has always pushed the boundaries of what seems possible, even when the tools and techniques seem primitive by modern standards. Today, as we develop increasingly complex computers and artificial intelligence systems, the Antikythera mechanism offers a humbling perspective on technological achievement. It reminds us that the desire to understand and predict the cosmos is ancient, and that the boundary between science and engineering has always been fluid. The bronze gears that once tracked the movements of celestial bodies continue to inspire new generations of scientists and engineers, proof that true innovation transcends the limitations of its time. Part 3. The Burned Library that Erased an Era. The Library of Alexandria. In the ancient world, no institution commanded more respect or inspired more awe than the great Library of Alexandria. Built in the 3rd century BCE during the reign of Ptolemy I, this magnificent center of learning represented humanity's first systematic attempt to collect, preserve, and organize all human knowledge. For nearly 7 centuries, it stood as the intellectual heart of the Mediterranean world, attracting the greatest minds of antiquity and fostering discoveries that wouldn't be matched again for over 1,000 years. The Library of Alexandria was more than just a repository of books. It was a living, breathing research institution that combined the functions of a modern university, research center, and national library. The Ptolemaic rulers of Egypt, successors to Alexander the Great, understood that knowledge was power. They invested enormous resources in creating an institution that would make Alexandria, Xandria, the undisputed center of learning in the ancient world. The library's collection was staggering in its scope and ambition. Ancient sources claim it contained between 400,000 and 700,000 scrolls. Though modern scholars debate these numbers, what's certain is that the Ptolemies used every means at their disposal to acquire texts. Ships entering Alexandria's harbor were searched, and any books found were confiscated for copying. The original texts were kept for the library, while copies were returned to their owners, though reportedly often of inferior quality. The library's acquisition policy extended far beyond mere collecting. Ptolemaic agents traveled throughout the Mediterranean and beyond, seeking out rare and valuable texts. They purchased the personal libraries of famous scholars, commissioned translations of foreign works, and even acquired official state archives from Athens and other Greek cities. The library became the repository for the intellectual heritage of the entire ancient world. Among the treasures housed within the library's walls were the complete works of Homer, Hesiod, and the great tragic poets of Greece. Mathematical treatises by Euclid, who worked at the library and developed his famous geometric principles there, sat alongside medical texts by Hippocrates and philosophical works by Plato and Aristotle. The library contained astronomical observations from Babylon, Egyptian medical papyri, and translations of texts from as far away as India. The scholars who worked at the library, known as the Mausian, were among the most brilliant minds of their age. They received generous stipends from the Ptolemaic rulers, allowing them to devote their full attention to research and teaching. This patronage system created an environment where pure research could flourish without the constraints of immediate practical application. Eratosthenes, the library's third head librarian, calculated the circumference of the earth using nothing more than shadows and geometry, arriving at a figure remarkably close to the modern value. His method was ingenious. He observed that at noon, On the summer solstice, the sun shone directly down a well in Syene, while in Alexandria it cast a shadow. By measuring the angle of the shadow and knowing the distance between the two cities, he could calculate the Earth's circumference. Aristarchus of Samos, working at the library, proposed that the Earth revolved around the sun, anticipating Copernicus by nearly 2 millennia. His heliocentric model was based on careful observations of lunar eclipses and the relative sizes of the Earth, Moon, and Sun, while his contemporaries rejected this radical idea. His mathematical methods for calculating astronomical distances were remarkably sophisticated. The library's medical collection contained works that wouldn't be surpassed until the Renaissance. Herophilus, working in Alexandria, performed systematic dissections of human cadavers, distinguishing between arteries and veins and describing the structure of the nervous system. His anatomical discoveries were preserved in the library's medical texts, along with surgical procedures and pharmaceutical recipes that represented the pinnacle of ancient medical knowledge. The library's mathematical collection was equally impressive. Euclid's Elements, written while he taught at the library, became the foundation of mathematical education for over 2,000 years. Apollonius of Perga developed the theory of conic sections, work that would later prove essential for understanding planetary orbits and ballistic trajectories. Archimedes corresponded with library scholars, sharing his discoveries about hydrostatics, mechanics, and the calculation of pi. The library's influence extended far beyond pure scholarship. Its geographical collection included detailed maps and descriptions of trade routes, harbors, and natural resources. This information was crucial for the Ptolemaic administration of Egypt and for merchants throughout the Mediterranean. The library's scholars compiled comprehensive dictionaries and encyclopedias, standardizing knowledge across different fields. What made the library particularly valuable was its role as a center for translation and commentary. Scholars didn't merely collect texts, they compared different versions, identified errors, and wrote extensive commentaries explaining difficult passages. This scholarly apparatus represented centuries of accumulated wisdom about how to interpret and understand ancient texts. The library's decline began in the Roman period, as political instability and economic pressures reduced support for pure scholarship. The Romans, while appreciating Greek learning, were more practically minded than the Ptolemies. They valued engineering and administration over abstract mathematical or philosophical speculation. Support for the library gradually decreased, and its collection began to scatter. The final destruction of the library wasn't a single dramatic event, but rather a gradual process of neglect and decay. Various incidents contributed to its decline. A fire during Julius Caesar's siege of Alexandria damaged part of the collection. Christian riots in the 4th century CE destroyed pagan texts, and the Arab conquest of Alexandria in 641 CE marked the end of whatever remained of the ancient institution. The loss of the library's collection represents one of history's greatest intellectual catastrophes. Entire fields of knowledge simply vanished. We know of important works only through fragments and references in surviving texts. The complete works of Sophocles, of which only 7 plays survive out of more than 120, were likely preserved in the library. Similarly, most of Aristotle's writings, including his dialogues that were praised in antiquity for their literary beauty, have been lost. The library's scientific texts may have contained discoveries that weren't rediscovered until the Renaissance or later. Ancient references suggest that library scholars had developed sophisticated astronomical instruments, mathematical techniques, and even primitive steam engines. The loss of these texts may have set back human scientific progress by centuries. The library's geographical and historical collections would have provided invaluable information about the ancient world. Maps showing trade routes, descriptions of unknown lands, and accounts of lost civilizations were all consumed by time and neglect. The library's ethnographic collection, containing descriptions of various cultures and peoples, would have offered insights into the ancient world's diversity that we can only imagine. Perhaps most tragically, the library's role as a center for critical scholarship was lost. The methods developed by library scholars for comparing texts, identifying corruptions, and establishing authentic readings were sophisticated techniques that wouldn't be fully recovered until the Renaissance. The loss of this scholarly tradition meant that much ancient knowledge survived only in corrupt or incomplete forms. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria serves as a powerful reminder of how fragile human knowledge can be. It demonstrates that civilizations can lose as much as they gain, and that the preservation of knowledge requires constant vigilance and support. The library's fate also illustrates the importance of institutions that support pure research and scholarship, even when their practical value isn't immediately apparent. Today, as we face new challenges to the preservation of knowledge, from digital decay to political instability, the Library of Alexandria offers both inspiration and warning. It reminds us that the accumulation of human knowledge is a precious achievement that must be actively protected and transmitted to future generations. The library's legacy lives on in every modern research institution, every public library, and every attempt to organize and preserve human knowledge for the benefit of all. Part 4. The Steel of the Gods, Damascus Steel. In the medieval world, no weapon was more feared or coveted than a blade forged from Damascus steel. These legendary swords, recognizable by their distinctive watered patterns and unmatched sharpness, could allegedly cut through European weapons like a hot knife through butter. Knights who faced Damascus steel blades in the Crusades returned home with tales of swords that could slice through rifle barrels yet remained flexible enough to bend without breaking. The secret of this miraculous material was so closely guarded that when it was finally lost, centuries of effort failed to rediscover it. The origins of Damascus steel lie not in Damascus, Syria, as the name suggests, but in the crucible furnaces of India and Sri Lanka. The raw material, known as Wootz steel, was produced through a complex process that began with iron ore of exceptional purity. Indian metallurgists had discovered that by combining this iron with organic materials, like leaves and bark, in sealed crucible furnaces, they could create a steel with properties that seemed almost supernatural. The process of creating Wootz steel was as much art as science. Skilled smiths would heat iron ore, charcoal, and organic additives in sealed clay crucibles for days at temperatures exceeding 1,500 degrees Celsius. The organic materials provided precise amounts of carbon, while trace elements from the specific ores created the complex microstructure that gave Damascus steel its legendary properties. The result was ingots of steel with a carbon content that varied throughout the metal, creating regions of different hardness and flexibility. These Wootz ingots were then exported along trade routes to smiths throughout the Islamic world, particularly to Damascus. where master craftsmen had perfected the art of forging them into blades. The Damascus smiths didn't simply hammer the steel into shape. They employed sophisticated techniques that revealed and enhanced the metal's natural patterns. Through careful heating, folding, and quenching, they could bring out the characteristic watered patterns that made Damascus steel instantly recognizable. The visual appearance of Damascus steel was striking. The blade's surface showed flowing patterns that resembled wood grain, water ripples, or even ladder-like structures. These patterns weren't merely decorative. They were visible evidence of the steel's internal structure. The swirling designs revealed the distribution of carbon throughout the metal, with different regions containing varying amounts of the element that determined the steel's hardness and flexibility. The performance of Damascus steel blades was legendary. Contemporary accounts describe swords that could cut through European mail armor, slice silk scarves thrown into the air, and remain sharp after battles that would have dulled ordinary weapons. The steel's unique microstructure allowed it to hold an incredibly fine edge, while maintaining the flexibility needed to absorb the shock of combat without breaking. What made Damascus steel so superior to other metals of its time was its complex internal structure. Modern analysis has revealed that the steel contained carbon nanotubes and cementite nanowires, structures that wouldn't be understood or deliberately created until the 20th century. These microscopic features gave the steel its combination of hardness and toughness, allowing it to outperform any other metal available to medieval weaponsmiths. The secret of Damascus steel wasn't just in the raw materials or the forging techniques. It was in the accumulated knowledge of generations of skilled craftsmen. Each master smith had his own closely guarded methods, passed down through family lines or guild traditions. The knowledge was largely empirical, based on observation and experience, rather than scientific understanding of the underlying metallurgy. The decline of Damascus steel began in the 18th century. As the sources of Hikkality, Wootz, steel became increasingly scarce. The specific iron ores used in India and Sri Lanka were depleted, and the political upheavals of the period disrupted the trade routes that had connected Wootz producers with Damascus smiths. European colonial expansion also played a role, as traditional Indian metallurgical centers were destroyed or abandoned. The loss of Damascus steel was gradual but irreversible, as the last supplies of genuine Wootz steel were consumed. Damascus smiths found themselves unable to produce blades of the same quality. Attempts to substitute other materials failed, as the unique properties of Damascus steel depended on the specific composition and structure of Wootz steel. Within a few generations, the techniques for creating true Damascus steel were lost. The mystery of Damascus steel captured the imagination of European metallurgists who spent centuries trying to recreate it. The Industrial Revolution brought new scientific approaches to metallurgy. But despite systematic efforts to analyze surviving blades and replicate their properties, the secret remained elusive. The problem was that Damascus steel's superiority didn't depend on any single factor, but on the complex interaction of composition, structure, and technique. In the 19th century, several European smiths claimed to have rediscovered the secret of Damascus steel. However, their products, while showing similar patterns, lacked the exceptional properties of genuine Damascus blades. These modern attempts, often called pattern-welded steel, created visual effects through folding and welding different types of steel, but they couldn't replicate the unique microstructure of true Damascus steel. The scientific understanding of Damascus steel began to emerge only in the 20th century, as advanced analytical techniques revealed its internal structure. Electron microscopy showed the presence of carbon nanotubes and other microscopic features that gave the steel its remarkable properties. This analysis confirmed that Damascus steel was indeed a unique material, not simply the result of superior craftsmanship working with ordinary steel. Modern attempts to recreate Damascus steel have met with limited success. While contemporary metallurgists can produce steels with similar carbon nanotube structures, the process requires sophisticated equipment and precise control of temperatures and atmospheric conditions. The ancient smiths achieved these results through empirical knowledge and traditional techniques that took generations to perfect. The loss of Damascus steel represents more than just the disappearance of a superior weapon. It symbolizes the fragility of technological knowledge, especially when it depends on tacit skills and specific natural resources. The steel's decline also illustrates how global trade networks can create vulnerabilities, as the disruption of supply chains can cause entire industries to collapse. The story of Damascus steel has particular resonance in our modern world, where advanced materials and manufacturing techniques are often concentrated in specific regions or companies. The loss of Damascus steel serves as a reminder that technological superiority can be temporary, and that the knowledge required to create advanced materials can be lost if not properly preserved and transmitted. Today, the legend of Damascus steel continues to inspire metallurgists and materials scientists. Research into nanostructured materials often draws inspiration from the accidental nanotechnology of ancient Damascus smiths. The steel's unique properties have influenced the development of modern superalloys and composite materials, proving that sometimes the most advanced solutions can be found by looking backward to forgotten technologies. The legacy of Damascus steel also extends beyond metallurgy to broader questions about craftsmanship and industrial knowledge. In an age of mass production and standardization, the loss of Damascus steel reminds us of the value of skilled artisans and traditional techniques. It suggests that some forms of knowledge cannot be easily codified or transferred, and that the loss of craft traditions can represent a genuine impoverishment of human capability. Part 5. The Builders Without Blueprints. Incan Stonework. High in the Andes Mountains, in the ancient capital of Cusco, stands a wall that has puzzled architects and engineers for centuries. The stones of fortress fit together with such precision that not even a knife blade can slip between them. No mortar holds these massive blocks in place, some weighing over 100 tons. Yet they have survived devastating earthquakes that toppled Spanish colonial buildings constructed on top of them. The Incas accomplished this feat without wheeled vehicles, iron tools, or written blueprints, using techniques that modern engineers struggle to replicate. The mystery of Incan stonework extends far beyond, throughout the former Inca Empire, from the sacred city of Machu Picchu to the temple complexes of Ollantaytambo. Perfectly fitted stone walls demonstrate a level of precision that challenges our understanding of pre-Columbian technology. These structures were built by a civilization that had no knowledge of the wheel, no iron tools, and no written language, yet they achieved a standard of construction that modern builders, with all their advanced equipment, find difficult to match. The Incas inherited a tradition of sophisticated stonework from earlier Andean civilizations, but they perfected it to an unprecedented degree. Their ancestors, including the Chavin, Mocha, and Tiwanaku cultures, had developed advanced techniques for working stone. But Incan masonry represented the pinnacle of this ancient tradition. The Incas took the accumulated knowledge of over a millennium of Andean engineering and elevated it to an art form. The most remarkable aspect of Incan stonework is its precision. The joints between stones are so tight that they appear to be single, continuous pieces of rock. This precision wasn't achieved through measurement and calculation in the modern sense, but through a process of trial and error that required extraordinary skill and patience. Incan masons would repeatedly fit and refit stones until they achieved perfect alignment, a process that could take months for a single wall. The tools used by Incan builders were surprisingly simple. They worked primarily with bronze and stone implements, including bronze chisels, stone hammers, and wooden levers. The absence of iron tools, which were unknown in the Americas before European contact, makes their achievements even more remarkable. These simple tools, combined with techniques passed down through generations of skilled craftsmen, allowed the Incas to shape the hardest granite and andesite with incredible precision. The process of quarrying and transporting the massive stones used in Incan construction required ingenious solutions. The Incas identified suitable stone deposits in the mountains and used a combination of heating and cooling to split rocks along natural fault lines. They would build fires against rock faces, then rapidly cool them with water, causing the stone to crack in predictable patterns. This technique, combined with bronze tools and tremendous patience, allowed them to extract blocks of the desired size and shape. Moving these massive stones from quarries to construction sites presented another formidable challenge. The Incas had no wheeled vehicles or large domesticated animals capable of hauling heavy loads. Instead, they relied on human labor, ropes, and ingenious mechanical devices. Thousands of workers would move stones using wooden rollers, ramps, and leverage systems that multiplied human strength. The construction of illustrates the scale of Incan engineering projects. This fortress, built on a hill overlooking Cusco, required the movement and placement of stones weighing up to 200 tons. The largest stones were quarried from sites over 20 kilometers away and transported across rugged terrain using only human power. The precision with which these enormous blocks were fitted together suggests a level of planning and coordination that rivals modern construction projects. The techniques used to achieve such precise fits remain largely mysterious. Modern experiments have shown that the Incas likely used a combination of methods, including careful measurement with strings and plumb lines, the creation of wooden templates, and a process of gradual fitting that involved moving stones multiple times until perfect alignment was achieved. The absence of written records means that much of this knowledge died with the craftsmen who possessed it. Recent archaeological investigations have revealed some of the Incas' secrets. Examination of partially completed walls shows evidence of the fitting process, with stones showing multiple attempts at placement. The Incas also used a technique called scribing, where they would mark the exact shape needed on a stone before cutting it to fit. This process required extraordinary spatial visualization skills and intimate knowledge of stone properties. The Incas' understanding of seismic engineering was particularly advanced. Living in a region prone to earthquakes, they developed construction techniques that allowed their buildings to flex and move without collapsing. The precise fitting of stones created structures that could shift during earthquakes while maintaining their integrity. This seismic resistance has been demonstrated repeatedly, as Incan walls have survived earthquakes that destroyed later Spanish colonial buildings. The architectural principles underlying Incan stonework were sophisticated despite the absence of formal mathematical training. The Incas understood concepts of load distribution, structural stability, and material properties through empirical observation and experimentation. Their buildings demonstrate principles of physics and engineering that weren't formally codified until much later in European architecture. The organization required for Incan construction projects was as impressive as the technical achievements. The construction of a major temple or fortress required the coordination of thousands of workers, from quarrymen and transporters to skilled masons and supervisors. This coordination was achieved through the Inca administrative system, which could mobilize massive amounts of labor for public projects. The loss of Incan stonework techniques represents one of history's great technological disasters. The Spanish conquest of 1532 destroyed not only the Inca Empire, but also the knowledge systems that had created their architectural marvels. The skilled craftsmen who possessed this knowledge were killed in the conquest, died from European diseases, or were forced to abandon their traditional practices. The Spanish colonizers, while impressed by Incan architecture, had little interest in learning indigenous techniques. They preferred to build in European styles, using European methods, viewing native practices as primitive despite their obvious superiority in the local environment. This cultural prejudice contributed to the loss of invaluable engineering knowledge. The destruction of Incan knowledge was systematic and thorough. The Spanish not only dismantled many Incan buildings to use their stones for colonial construction, but also suppressed the transmission of traditional knowledge. The quipu, the Incan system of record keeping using knotted cords, was banned, and traditional educational systems were replaced with European models that ignored indigenous knowledge. Modern attempts to understand and replicate Incan stonework have met with limited success. While contemporary engineers can analyze the structures and understand their principles, recreating the precise techniques used by Incan masons remains elusive. The knowledge required was not simply technical, but also cultural, embedded in generations of tradition and practice. The loss of Incan stonework techniques has practical implications for modern construction in seismically active regions. The principles of flexible, earthquake-resistant construction that the Incas developed could inform contemporary engineering practices. However, the specific techniques for achieving the precise fits and load distribution of Incan masonry remain largely unknown. Recent efforts to preserve and study Incan architecture have revealed new insights into their construction methods. Laser scanning and 3D modeling of Incan sites have provided unprecedented detail about their construction techniques. These studies have revealed the extraordinary precision of Incan work and provided new clues about how it was achieved. The story of Incan stonework serves as a powerful reminder of the sophistication of pre-Columbian civilizations and the tragedy of lost knowledge. It demonstrates that technological advancement can take many forms and that the absence of certain tools or techniques doesn't necessarily indicate technological inferiority. The Incas achieved results that modern engineers struggle to replicate, using methods that were perfectly adapted to their environment and resources. The legacy of Incan stonework continues to inspire architects and engineers today. The principles of precise fitting, seismic resistance, and sustainable construction that the Incas developed remain relevant for contemporary building practices. As we face modern challenges of urban construction in earthquake-prone regions, the wisdom of Incan builders offers valuable lessons about creating structures that can withstand the test of time. Part 6. The glass that shouldn't exist. Roman flexible glass. In the grand pantheon of Roman technological achievements, from aqueducts to concrete, one invention stands apart, not for its widespread use, but for its deliberate destruction. Ancient Roman authors tell of a mysterious material called vitrum flexile, a flexible glass that could bend without breaking and be repaired with nothing more than a hammer blow. If these accounts are true, this material would have revolutionized the ancient world and possibly changed the course of history. Instead, it vanished so completely that modern scholars debate whether it ever existed at all. The story begins with Pliny the Elder, the Roman naturalist whose encyclopedic work Natural History serves as one of our primary windows into Roman technology. Writing in the 1st century CE, Pliny describes an encounter between Emperor Tiberius and a craftsman who claimed to have invented unbreakable glass. According to Pliny's account, the artisan demonstrated his creation before the emperor, allowing it to be struck and dented, then repairing the damage with a small hammer. Rather than rewarding this remarkable innovation, Tiberius allegedly asked whether anyone else knew the secret. When the craftsman assured him that he alone possessed the knowledge, the emperor ordered his execution, fearing that this unbreakable glass would devalue gold and silver. The Roman historian Cassius Dio provides another version of this tale, placing it during the reign of Emperor Hadrian rather than Tiberius. In Dio's account, the craftsman presents a drinking cup made of this flexible glass to the emperor. When dropped, the cup dents rather than shatters, and the craftsman hammers it back into shape before the astonished court. The emperor, recognizing the economic implications of such a material, orders the workshop destroyed and the inventor killed to prevent the secret from spreading. Petronius, in his satirical novel Satyricon, also references this mysterious material, describing it as a type of glass that yields to blows like bronze vessels. These multiple independent sources suggest that vitrum flexile was not merely a literary invention, but was believed to have existed by educated Romans of the era. Modern materials science offers several possibilities for what vitrum flexile might have been. Some researchers suggest it could have been an early form of what we now call metallic glass, an amorphous metal alloy that exhibits glass-like properties while maintaining metallic flexibility. These materials, discovered in the 1960s, can indeed be repaired through heating and reshaping, much like the ancient accounts describe. Another possibility is that the Romans had developed a form of safety glass or laminated glass, possibly using organic materials like animal membranes or plant resins between layers of thin glass. Such composite materials could bend without shattering and might be repairable through careful heating and reshaping. Archaeological evidence from Pompeii and other Roman sites shows that Roman glassmakers were sophisticated craftsmen capable of creating complex, multi-layered objects. The deliberate destruction of this technology, if it existed, would not have been unprecedented in Roman history. The empire was built on careful control of resources and technology, and emperors frequently made decisions based on economic rather than purely technological considerations. The production of glass was already a significant industry in the Roman world, employing thousands of craftsmen and generating substantial tax revenue. An unbreakable glass would have disrupted this entire economic sector. Moreover, the Romans understood that military technologies could be double-edged swords. If flexible glass could be used for improved armor or weapons, its proliferation might have threatened imperial security. The same material that could create unbreakable vessels might also be used to create superior shields or protective equipment for potential rebels or enemies. The loss of Vitrum Flexile, whether real or legendary, represents a broader pattern in Roman technological development. Many Roman innovations were closely guarded secrets passed down through specific guilds or workshops. When these institutions were disrupted by political upheaval, economic collapse, or deliberate suppression, the knowledge often died with them. Archaeological investigations continue to search for evidence of flexible glass in Roman contexts. In 2019, researchers at the University of Pennsylvania announced the discovery of unusual glass fragments at a Roman site in Germany that showed signs of having been repeatedly deformed and repaired. While not conclusive proof of Vitrum Flexile, these findings suggest that Roman glassmakers were experimenting with materials and techniques that went beyond conventional glass production. The story of Vitrum Flexile serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of technological knowledge and the role of political power in shaping scientific progress. Whether the material actually existed or was merely a persistent legend, its story highlights how fear of economic disruption and political instability can lead to the suppression of potentially revolutionary technologies. In our modern world, where technological innovation is generally celebrated and protected, the tale of Vitrum Flexile reminds us that progress is not inevitable and that valuable knowledge can be lost through deliberate action just as easily as through neglect or accident. Part 7. The Death of the Death Ray. Archimedes' Heat Ray. The siege of Syracuse in 212 BCE stands as one of the most famous defensive actions in ancient history, largely due to the legendary weapons deployed by the great mathematician and inventor Archimedes. Among these was perhaps the most controversial, a system of mirrors that could focus sunlight to burn enemy ships at a distance. Yet recent experiments suggest that Archimedes may have possessed knowledge of optical principles that wouldn't be formally understood until centuries later. The primary account comes from the Byzantine historian Anthemus of Tralles, writing in the 6th century CE, nearly 800 years after the siege. He describes how Archimedes arranged a series of mirrors to focus the sun's rays on Roman ships, setting them ablaze from a considerable distance. The Roman historian Livy, writing much closer to the events, mentions engines that could burn ships, but doesn't specifically describe mirrors. This discrepancy has led many scholars to question whether the mirror system ever existed. However, Archimedes' expertise in optics and mathematics makes the concept theoretically plausible. His work on parabolic mirrors and their focusing properties was centuries ahead of his time. The mathematician understood that parabolic surfaces could collect parallel light rays and focus them to a single point, generating intense heat. The practical challenges would have been immense. Creating mirrors with sufficient reflectivity and precision would have required advanced metallurgy and polishing techniques. Bronze mirrors of the period, while functional, had limited reflective efficiency compared to modern silvered glass. The mirrors would need to be large enough to collect significant amounts of sunlight, yet maneuverable enough to track targets at sea. In 1973, Greek scientist Ioannis Sakis conducted the first serious experimental reconstruction of Archimedes' mirror system. Using 70 flat mirrors held by Greek sailors, he successfully ignited a wooden boat at a distance of 50 meters. The experiment demonstrated that the basic principle was sound, though the practical challenges remained significant. More recently, in 2005, MIT students attempted to recreate the weapon using 127 small mirrors, while they managed to ignite a wooden target. The process was slow and required ideal conditions, including calm air, bright sunlight, and a stationary target. The researchers concluded that while the mirror system could work in theory, its practical military applications would have been limited. The Discovery Channel's Mythbusters program tested the concept multiple times with varying results. Their experiments showed that while mirror systems could generate enough heat to ignite dry wood, the process was too slow and required too many ideal conditions to be effective against moving ships during active combat. However, they acknowledged that the system might have been useful for igniting ships at anchor or in harbor. Recent computer modeling has provided new insights into the feasibility of Archimedes' mirror system. Researchers at the University of Southern California used advanced optical simulation software to model various mirror configurations. Their results suggest that a properly designed system of parabolic mirrors could indeed generate temperatures sufficient to ignite wood at distances of up to 100 meters, provided the mirrors were large enough and precisely aligned. The dismissal of Archimedes' heat ray as impossible may reflect modern biases about ancient technological capabilities. Medieval Arab scholars, who preserved and expanded upon Greek scientific works, wrote extensively about the military applications of focused sunlight. The 10th century scientist Ibn al-Haytham described practical methods for constructing burning mirrors, suggesting that the knowledge existed and was considered viable. Archaeological evidence from Syracuse itself provides tantalizing clues. Excavations have uncovered bronze working facilities of remarkable sophistication, including evidence of large-scale mirror production. The city's defenders had access to extensive copper mines and skilled metalworkers capable of creating the precise. The strategic context of the siege also supports the possibility that such a weapon existed. Syracuse was under prolonged blockade, and conventional defensive measures were proving inadequate against Roman engineering. Archimedes had already demonstrated his ability to create innovative defensive weapons. The loss of this technology, assuming it existed, likely resulted from the fall of Syracuse and the death of Archimedes himself. The Roman general Marcellus had specifically ordered that Archimedes be taken alive, recognizing the value of his knowledge. When a Roman soldier killed the mathematician despite these orders, the story of Archimedes' heat ray illustrates how technological knowledge can be lost when it exists only in the mind of a single individual or small group, unlike written works, which can be copied and preserved. Practical engineering knowledge often depends on hands-on experience and apprenticeship systems. Modern solar thermal weapons, including experimental military systems, operate on principles remarkably similar to those attributed to Archimedes. The fact that we've only recently developed the materials and precision manufacturing techniques to make such systems practical doesn't necessarily mean they were impossible in ancient times, merely that they required extraordinary skill and resources. Part 8. The Secrets Buried in China's Forbidden Tomb. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang, beneath a man-made mountain in China's Shanxi province, lies one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. the unopened tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of unified China. The central tomb chamber remains sealed, its contents unknown after more than 2,200 years. Ancient texts describe wonders within that suggest the emperor may have taken lost scientific knowledge to his grave, including advanced metallurgy, chemistry, and engineering techniques that wouldn't be seen again for centuries. The tomb's construction began in 246 BCE, when the future emperor was just 13 years old, and continued for nearly 4 decades. Historical records indicate that over 700,000 workers labored on the project, including skilled craftsmen, artists, and engineers from across the newly unified Chinese territories. The massive undertaking required not only enormous human resources, but also represented the pinnacle of contemporary Chinese technology and engineering. The historian Sima Qian, writing about a century after the emperor's death, provides the most detailed description of the tomb's interior. According to his account, the burial chamber contains a scale model of the Chinese Empire, complete with rivers of mercury that flow mechanically through miniature mountains and valleys. The ceiling was decorated with precious stones arranged to represent the constellations, while the floor depicted the geography of the empire in intricate detail. Modern scientific analysis has provided startling confirmation of these ancient descriptions. Soil samples taken from the tomb area show mercury concentrations up to 100 times higher than normal background levels, suggesting that vast quantities of the liquid metal were indeed used in the tomb's construction. Ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive technologies have revealed the presence of large chambers and what appear to be flowing systems within the tomb complex. The use of mercury in such quantities represents remarkable technological sophistication. Mercury mining and purification in ancient China required advanced metallurgical knowledge and sophisticated furnace technology. The metal was not only rare and valuable, but also extremely dangerous to work with, requiring specialized techniques to handle safely. The ability to create mechanical systems that could maintain mercury flows for centuries suggests engineering capabilities that exceeded those of most contemporary civilizations. Ancient texts describe other marvels within the tomb that point to advanced scientific knowledge. Crossbow mechanisms were reportedly installed to automatically fire at intruders, representing an early form of automated defense system. These devices would have required precise mechanical engineering, including trigger mechanisms, spring systems, and ammunition storage that could function reliably after centuries of inactivity. The tomb's construction also allegedly involved sophisticated chemical knowledge. Historical accounts describe the use of pills of mercury to preserve the emperor's body and prevent decay. While mercury's toxic properties were not fully understood in ancient times, Chinese alchemists had discovered its preservative qualities and may have developed complex chemical compounds for mummification purposes. Some texts hint at the use of other chemicals and minerals to create an artificial atmosphere within the tomb that would prevent decomposition and maintain the mercury systems. Archaeological evidence from the surrounding complex suggests that the tomb builders possessed advanced knowledge of materials science. Analysis of bronze artifacts from the Terracotta Army reveals sophisticated alloy compositions and surface treatments that enhanced durability and appearance. Some weapons show evidence of chromium plating, a technique that wouldn't be rediscovered in the West until the 19th century. The emperor's obsession with immortality may have driven him to commission research into subjects that bordered on early chemistry and physics. Historical records indicate that he employed numerous alchemists and scholars who experimented with various substances and techniques. Some of these experiments may have resulted in technological breakthroughs that died with their creators, or were buried in the tomb to prevent their misuse. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted in recent years have revealed additional chambers and structures within the tomb complex that don't match the descriptions in ancient texts. These discoveries suggest that the tomb may contain technologies or treasures that were never recorded in historical documents. The presence of what appear to be mechanical systems based on electromagnetic anomalies detected by instruments has led some researchers to speculate about the existence of ancient automation or clockwork mechanisms. The decision to leave the tomb unopened reflects both respect for cultural heritage and recognition of the technical challenges involved. The mercury contamination alone presents serious health and environmental risks. Additionally, the tomb's mechanical systems, if they still function, could be damaged by modern intrusion. Chinese authorities have decided to wait until archaeological techniques advance sufficiently to ensure the tomb's contents can be safely preserved and studied. The potential loss of knowledge buried in the tomb represents one of history's great intellectual tragedies. If the emperor did indeed take advanced scientific and technological knowledge to his grave, humanity may have lost centuries of progress in various fields. The metallurgical techniques, chemical processes, and engineering principles developed for the tomb's construction may have included innovations that wouldn't be rediscovered for hundreds or even thousands of years. Recent advances in non-invasive archaeological techniques offer hope that some of the tomb's secrets may eventually be revealed without disturbing the burial chamber itself. High-resolution, ground-penetrating radar, muon tomography, and other technologies are providing increasingly detailed images of the tomb's interior. These techniques may eventually allow researchers to study the tomb's contents and construction techniques without physically entering the chamber. The story of Qin Shi Huang's tomb serves as a reminder that technological knowledge can be deliberately hidden as well as accidentally lost. The emperor's decision to take his secrets to the grave may have been motivated by a desire to maintain power even in death, ensuring that his achievements couldn't be replicated or surpassed by successors. This deliberate concealment of knowledge represents a pattern seen throughout history, where political or religious authorities have suppressed technological innovations to maintain control or prevent social disruption. Part 9. The Map That Shouldn't Exist, the Piri Reis Map. In 1929, workers renovating the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul made a discovery that would challenge conventional understanding of age of exploration cartography. Hidden in the palace archives was a partial world map drawn on gazelle skin. The map's most controversial feature is its apparent depiction of Antarctica, shown as a continent at the bottom of the world with surprising topographical accuracy. The official discovery of Antarctica didn't occur until 1820, more than 300 years after Piri Reis drew his map. Even more puzzling, the map appears to show the coastline of Antarctica, as it would appear without ice coverage. Piri Reis himself provided clues about his sources in annotations around the map's edges. He claimed to have compiled information from about 20 different maps, including charts used by Christopher Columbus and other contemporary explorers. More intriguingly, he mentioned using maps from the time of Alexander the Great and other ancient sources that predated the supposed discovery of the Americas by over 1,000 years. The accuracy of the map's South American coastline is particularly remarkable. Using modern cartographic analysis, researchers have found that the map shows features of the Brazilian and Argentinian coasts with precision that rivals contemporary European charts. The map correctly depicts the mouth of the Amazon River, the coastline of Patagonia. Professor Charles Hapgood of Keene College conducted extensive analysis of the Peary race map in the 1960s, concluding that it demonstrated the existence of advanced navigational and cartographic knowledge in the ancient world. Hapgood's work suggested that the map was compiled from much older sources, possibly dating back to ancient Greek, Egyptian, or even pre-Columbian civilizations that possessed sophisticated understanding of global geography. The mathematical precision of the map's projections has also attracted attention from modern cartographers. The map uses a stereographic projection centered on Cairo, a technique that requires advanced mathematical knowledge and suggests access to astronomical and geodetic information that wouldn't be commonly available until much later in the 16th century. The accuracy of this projection implies that the mapmaker had access to precise latitude and longitude measurements for distant continents. Ancient navigation techniques were far more sophisticated than often assumed. Greek and Arab navigators had developed methods for determining latitude using stellar observations, while longitude could be estimated through careful dead reckoning and lunar observations. The Library of Alexandria and other ancient centers of learning had accumulated vast geographical knowledge from traders. Archaeological evidence increasingly suggests that ancient civilizations may have undertaken ocean voyages of far greater scope than previously recognized. Roman coins have been found in America. Egyptian mummies have tested positive for cocaine and tobacco, and various archaeological sites show evidence of transoceanic contact centuries before Columbus. The Phoenicians, renowned as the ancient world's greatest navigators, established trading networks that stretched from Britain to the Indian Ocean. Their navigational techniques and geographical knowledge were closely guarded trade secrets, and much of their cartographic information may have been preserved in private archives or passed down through maritime guilds. Their accumulated geographical knowledge may have survived in fragmentary form, eventually finding its way into medieval Islamic libraries and ultimately to Ottoman cartographers like Piri Reis. Islamic scholars during the medieval period preserved and expanded upon ancient Greek and Roman geographical knowledge. The House of Wisdom in Baghdad, established in the 9th century, collected maps, navigational treatises, and geographical works from throughout the known world. Islamic explorers and traders, including figures like Ibn Battuta and Ahmad ibn Majid, the Ottoman Empire's position at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa gave it unique access to geographical knowledge from multiple civilizations. Ottoman scholars translated and preserved works from Greek, Persian, Arab, and other sources, creating comprehensive libraries that included maps and navigational information spanning centuries. Piri Reis, as an admiral in the Ottoman Navy, would have had access to these imperial archives and their accumulated geographical knowledge. Modern satellite imagery and ice-spinating radar have revealed that the Antarctic coastline shown on the Piri Reis map bears remarkable resemblance to the actual shape of the continent beneath its ice sheet. This has led some researchers to suggest that the map may have been compiled from sources that recorded Antarctica's geography during an ice-free period. The loss of ancient geographical knowledge represents one of history's great intellectual tragedies. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria, the decline of classical civilization, and the disruption of ancient trading networks led to the disappearance of accumulated geographical wisdom that had taken centuries to compile. Maps, sailing directions, and navigational techniques that represented the pinnacle of ancient knowledge were lost, forcing later civilizations to rediscover geographical facts that had been known in antiquity. The Piri Reis map serves as a tantalizing glimpse into this lost world of ancient navigation and cartography. Whether compiled from genuinely ancient sources or representing the culmination of medieval Islamic geographical knowledge, the map demonstrates that understanding of global geography was far more advanced in pre-modern times than conventional history suggests. The map's accuracy and detail remind us that technological and scientific knowledge can be lost and rediscovered, and that our understanding of what ancient civilizations knew and achieved may be far from complete. Part 10. The Pyramid Builders' Power Source. Lost Egyptian Engineering. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as humanity's most enduring architectural achievement. Yet the methods used to construct it remain one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Rising 146 meters into the desert sky and containing over 2.3 million stone blocks, some weighing up to 15 tons each. The precision of its construction, the sophistication of its internal structure, and the logistics of its assembly suggests that the ancient Egyptians possessed technological knowledge that was subsequently lost to time. The pyramid's mathematical precision astounds modern engineers. Its base forms a nearly perfect square, with sides measuring approximately 230 meters and varying by less than 2 centimeters. The structure's orientation aligns with cardinal directions to within 3 arc minutes, a precision that requires advanced surveying techniques and astronomical knowledge. The pyramid's slope angle of 51 degrees 52 minutes creates geometric relationships that incorporate the mathematical constant pi, suggesting sophisticated understanding of advanced mathematics. The Grand Gallery, stretching 47 meters through the pyramid's heart, features a corbelled ceiling that distributes weight through a series of precisely cut stone blocks. The King's Chamber contains granite blocks weighing up to 80 tons, transported from quarries 800 kilometers away and somehow maneuvered into position within the pyramid's interior. The chamber's dimensions create acoustic properties that modern sound engineers struggle to replicate. The logistics of pyramid construction present perhaps the greatest mystery. Conservative estimates suggest that the Great Pyramid required 20,000 to 30,000 workers laboring for 2 decades. These workers would have needed to quarry, transport, and position approximately 340 stones per day, working every day for 20 years. The organizational complexity of such an undertaking would have required sophisticated project management, advanced transportation systems, and precise coordination of multiple specialized teams. Stone-cutting techniques employed by pyramid builders exceeded the capabilities of copper and bronze tools available in the 4th dynasty. Analysis of cut surfaces reveals tool marks consistent with powered machinery rather than hand tools. Some blocks show evidence of saw cuts requiring blades over 2 meters long, while others display drill holes with spiral patterns suggesting high-speed rotation. The precision of these cuts, particularly in hard granite, implies access to advanced cutting technology that conventional archaeology cannot explain. Transportation of massive stone blocks presents another unsolved puzzle. The heaviest blocks in the pyramid weigh up to 80 tons, far exceeding the capacity of any known ancient lifting or moving equipment. Recent experiments using reconstructed ancient tools and techniques have successfully moved blocks weighing several tons, but scaling these methods to handle the pyramid's largest stones remains problematic. The ramps required to move such massive blocks to the pyramid's upper levels would have been enormous structures in their own right. The precision of stone fitting throughout the pyramid complex demonstrates mastery of techniques that modern construction struggles to replicate. Many joints between blocks are so tight that a knife blade cannot be inserted between them. This precision extends to the internal chambers, where granite blocks weighing tens of tons fit together with tolerances measured in millimeters. Achieving such precision with primitive tools would have required not only exceptional skill, but also measurement and quality control systems of remarkable sophistication. Recent excavations have uncovered evidence of harbors, canals, and ramps that formed an integrated transportation system. The Giza complex includes evidence of copper working facilities, stone-cutting workshops, and worker housing that suggests a level of industrial organization unprecedented in the ancient world. The pyramid's internal chambers incorporate features that suggest advanced understanding of physics and engineering principles. The relieving chambers above the king's chamber distribute the structure's weight through a complex system of granite beams and air gaps. The pyramid's ventilation shafts maintain air circulation through sophisticated angular geometry that creates natural airflow. These features demonstrate practical application of principles that wouldn't be formally understood until much later in human history. Water management systems associated with pyramid construction reveal sophisticated hydraulic engineering. Evidence suggests that ancient engineers may have used water-powered systems to lift heavy blocks, employing principles of hydraulic pressure and mechanical advantage that weren't formally codified until the Renaissance. The Giza complex includes evidence of sophisticated drainage systems and water storage facilities that supported large-scale construction operations. The tools and techniques used in pyramid construction appear to have been deliberately concealed or destroyed after the project's completion. Unlike other ancient technologies that left behind extensive archaeological evidence, pyramid construction methods seem to have vanished almost completely. This suggests either that the knowledge was closely guarded by specialized groups, or that it was deliberately suppressed to prevent its misuse or replication. Recent discoveries using advanced scanning techniques have revealed hidden chambers and passages within pyramids that suggest even greater complexity than previously understood. Ground-penetrating radar, cosmic ray imaging, and thermal scanning have detected voids and structures that conventional archaeology cannot explain. These findings indicate that pyramid construction involved techniques and purposes that remain beyond our current understanding. The decline of pyramid building technology coincided with political and social changes in ancient Egypt that disrupted the transmission of specialized knowledge. The collapse of the Old Kingdom, invasions by foreign powers, and changes in religious practices led to the abandonment of pyramid construction and the loss of associated technical knowledge. Later, Egyptian dynasties, despite their wealth and power, never again achieved the technical sophistication demonstrated in the Great Pyramid. The mystery of pyramid construction illustrates how advanced technical knowledge can be lost when it exists only within specialized communities. The pyramid builders' techniques may have been closely guarded secrets, passed down through apprenticeship systems that disappeared when the social structures supporting them collapsed, without written records or widespread dissemination. Even the most sophisticated technologies can vanish completely within a few generations. Modern attempts to reverse engineer pyramid construction methods have yielded important insights, but no definitive solutions. Computer modeling, materials testing, and experimental archaeology have demonstrated that ancient builders possessed capabilities that exceeded their supposed technological limitations. However, the specific techniques, tools, and organizational methods that made pyramid construction possible remain elusive, representing one of archaeology's most enduring puzzles. The lost engineering knowledge of pyramid builders serves as a reminder that technological progress is not always linear or cumulative. Advanced capabilities can be achieved through approaches that differ fundamentally from modern methods, and the loss of such knowledge can set back human achievement for centuries. The pyramid builders' accomplishments challenge our assumptions about ancient capabilities and suggest that the boundaries between possible and impossible may be far more flexible than we imagine. That's another night in the archives of No Sleep Historian. But before you go, ask yourself this: what technologies from our time might future archaeologists puzzle over? What innovations might we be losing right now without even realizing it? If tonight's journey through history's lost technologies kept you awake, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. We post new episodes every week, diving deep into the mysteries that mainstream history prefers to ignore. Drop a comment and let me know which vanished technology fascinated you most. Was it the Roman concrete that strengthens with age? The mysterious flexible glass that emperors killed to suppress? Or maybe the sealed tomb in China that might still contain flowing rivers of mercury? And if you think you know about a lost technology that deserves investigation, reach out. History is full of buried secrets, and some of the best discoveries come from viewers like you who notice the details that others miss. Remember, the past isn't as primitive as they want you to believe. Sometimes the most advanced civilizations are the ones that learned to hide their secrets so well that we're still searching for them today. Until next time, keep questioning, keep digging, and remember that the most important stories are often the ones that were meant to stay lost. This has been No Sleep Historian. Sweet dreams.